Okay, so we have SAS minor right here, but if you don't see SAS minor here, you look for SAS folder and then look for SAS minor workstation. That's what you should use. Okay, in the meantime, as it is coming up, we have already created a folder called MGT4270, and into which we have saved the Excel data file that we'll be using, right? So let's look at the Excel data file just for a second. And here I have a description, and let's review the description and see what these variables mean. So we have total value of the property, okay, the tax bill, okay, the square footage of the lot, the year the property was built. So the year the property was built, here is the actual year, 1980, 1945, and so on. Then we have gross area, living area. Okay. So up to this, they are all interval, except maybe the year built is kind of a date value. Okay. Now, number of floors, number of rooms, bedrooms, full bath, half bath, how many kitchens there are, all of these are ordinal variables. They are not interval variables. Okay, including the number of fireplaces. But the last one is remodel, and that's coded as that, none or recent or old, and that is again a nominal variable. Okay, that's not a numerical variable. So let's keep that in mind. So now we have the Excel minor, and when we have a new project to begin, start with new project and give a name, and we're going to give a name Ch02 underscore first project. Don't use a hyphen because that would be confused as a minus sign. Next, identify the folder where you want that project to be created. Okay, so that's that. Click next and review what will be performed, and click finish, and that will create our project for us. Okay, the project is created under C MGT4270 folder, and here is the project. And there are lots of folders that it automatically creates where it keeps track of information, and project.emp, that's the project file. So here is a project for screen. There are a couple of things that you have to do before we can get started. The first thing is to define a library. Okay. File, new library, and you create a new library, give a name. Again, make sure that you follow the naming convention. If you don't follow the naming convention, you're going to not be able to create the library. So I'm going to use MGT4270, no space, browse, and we're going to use that C drive MGT4270. Make sure that you use this folder as our library and to keep all the data, so that way we all will be in the same page. Yes.
Do you need a USB to download SAS, or do I have to download it?
It's there in this machine, but if you want your own installation, you have to. I have instructions in the Blackboard, so you follow the instructions, and you can copy the SAS executable file from the thumb drive that's available in the computer lab downstairs. So click next, finish, So now we have created the library, and there is one more thing you should do before we can do anything else, and that is to create a diagram on which we will be doing all our work. So you can create a diagram by right-clicking here and select create, and there are a couple of other ways in which you can do the same thing. And give a name, and I use the name housing reg. So this is a housing data set from the Boston area suburb. So we're going to be running a regression analysis with the housing data. And housing reg. Actually, here in this name you can have spaces in between. It doesn't matter. All right. So now we have a diagram, and then what we're going to do now is to bring in the data from Excel file, right? And then import the data from Excel file. That's what we did last time, which I am now repeating. Okay. So under sample, we have, if you hover over, it will tell you what the node is. File import is what we want. Click, hold, drag and drop. And I'm going to rename this as import housing data Excel, right? So right click, rename, import housing data, and this is from an Excel file. Okay, and here is the import file. Click that ellipsis and then browse to where the data file is. Remember, we already downloaded and saved the West Roxbury XLSX file in NGT4270. So browse to that file and click OK and click OK again. Okay. So now we have the file identified. Now if you click the variables, okay, then we can set the metadata about the variables, and this is a very important step. This we did not do last time. Okay, so now I'm going to do that, and you can do the same thing from from here. Make sure that you have this node and click variables. All right, so that we can set the role for the variable and the level for the variable. So right now the role is they're all input variables. Okay. Now the purpose of the analysis is to predict the value of new properties that may be coming in. So the total value, that role for that is to be changed to target. So from this point onwards, when you run predictive analysis, Excel Miner will automatically choose the target variable as this one. You don't have to specify what the target is, but because you've already done that here at this initial stage. Okay. Now, there is one thing that we should realize is that while all of these other variables will have predictive ability for the value of the property, the tax itself is not going to be useful for prediction purposes, because here is a very subtle point. Now, tax is determined by the value, or the value is determined by tax, as opposed to, say, the area of the plot or number of rooms you have. They are all predictive of the value of the property. Whereas tax comes after the value has been assessed. So tax comes after. You could predict what the tax would be from the total value. but not the other way around. So the tax information, even though it will be highly correlated with the total value, okay, but it doesn't have predictive ability because of the chronological order in which the values are determined. The tax comes afterwards, and therefore what we're going to do is to reject it. So we're not going to use it even though it is part of the data set. We're going to select reject it. So it will not be used in the analysis. Okay? So those are the roles. For the level, okay, the number of bedrooms is nominal. Fireplace is nominal. Floors is nominal. Full bath is nominal. Now gross area, that's interval, right? Now how many half baths, again that's nominal. How many kitchens, that's nominal. Living area is interval. Large square footage is interval. Remodel is already nominal because the values from the data set are labels and are numbers. Okay, number of rooms, well, no, the number of rooms actually in the data set, if you look at the data set, I think it goes from 1 or 2 to 15 or something. So here is where you can select, okay, up to how many different distinct values you will consider a variable to be nominal. So suppose if you have 50 different possible values, in that case maybe we can say that's interval and not nominal. So you have a judgment call to make here. So just for the purpose of illustration, I'm going to leave number of rooms as interval. But if there are only 15, 20 distinct values, it probably makes sense to make it nominal and not interval. But I'm going to just leave it as interval just for the sake. Now tax is rejected, target value is interval. Okay, year built, so right now let's leave it as interval. Maybe we have to do some additional computations with it. We'll come to that later. So here we have set the metadata for the data set and click OK and you run the node. How do you run the node? Right click and say run and click yes. And you can also run from here. Okay, so now it's running. Okay, run completed. Okay, and you can look at the results. So it tells you how many interval variables, how many nominal variables, and how many variables rejected, how many target variables there are, how many observations, totally how many variables, and such information is given here. And they're all pretty good. So it looks good. And now we have imported the data.